Welcome, Carly Elizabeth, to the Real Beauty Industry Podcast. I'm happy you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
This is going to be a fun interview, and for two reasons. Number one, you're going to have fun because you mentioned that this is the first time that you've ever done something like this, which I was shocked by because you have been done a lot, like just the little bit of research that I did and the little bit that you shared with us. You've done a lot. And also, we have a very compelling and I think long needed conversation to have in this industry. And I'm just going to jump right into it because, and
Yes.
we'll tell people more about you in just a second, but um so that everybody that's listening knows, whenever we have someone on, a lot of times I don't know them or I've never met them before. The little bit of research that I can do is pretty much through social media, maybe a little bit online. But if you're someone like Carly Elizabeth who has a platform, but your platform, just like many of us, like we're directing our platform, it doesn't tell every ounce of who we are. It talks about whether it's our business or whatever we're really trying to grow. That's such a small part of every human in general, but definitely in this industry. And what I love is that one of the things that you hit right on in our pre interview, which I asked two questions. And one of them is more about the beauty industry, and the other one is more about just you in the world. But the one that you answered about the beauty industry dove right into the fact that in an industry that is focused primarily on women, that it is primarily run by men. And
Absolutely.
I love this topic because I've personally been involved in a lot of the, I would say, I've been a part of a lot of conversations involving a lot of men who are running a lots of aspects of this industry. And I have seen people directly make decisions that I am sitting in the background going, this is never going to work. Even though it's a good idea, it's never going to work because you don't understand who your audience is. So I want to just
Absolutely.
jump right into this. And then we're going to go into who you are a little bit. But I just want to hear a little bit more about why you said that and what you mean, because I think there's so many people that probably feel that way that haven't been brave enough to say that out loud because frankly, most of us are trying to get those people's attention
Yes.
so nobody would ever say it. So tell me
Yes.
what you mean and where your head's at when you mention something like you think more women should be essentially having a more influential part of this industry.
Yeah. So I want to start off by just saying I am not a man hater of any sort. I appreciate the men in our industry and I appreciate men in other industries. But I do feel, especially in the beauty industry, and with all my years of working with different brands and different companies, huge salons, working fashion weeks, working the retail side of beauty, almost always outside of maybe a salon environment, um, the people at the top are men. And the disconnection that I feel that happens with that is, like you said, they don't know their audience. So it it's dictating a lot of what women feel or what makes them feel beautiful or what does not make them feel beautiful. And I find it, like you said, it's hard to even talk about it because brands that I want to work with too, and that I would like to strive to get to are the people up at the top are men. So it's a weird thing that nobody wants to say. And I don't want to say we're like bashing on men, but it's not something that I feel they can truly understand because they're not using all of the same products. They're not doing all the things with their hair. And there are some incredibly talented male stylists that I have worked with throughout all the years that I've worked. But I don't think as a whole of like where we're going that men should be at the top of all of these things making the final decisions. Um, Going into just, styling products, shampoos, little things like that, they're not using it on themselves every day. So there's a disconnect of, yes, you're using stuff on your clients and you know what they like, But if you're not doing something yourself, you don't really fully understand, and that goes for all stylists. I'm an extension artist. I specialize in extensions and makeup, and if I didn't put my makeup on every day and I didn't wear extensions, I would not feel comfortable telling someone what they should and should not do with those things because I haven't actually experienced it. So it's something for me that I just feel I would love to see more of in the future. I'd love to see more women coming into power and stepping into roles, especially even in the fashion industry. So I've been doing a lot of fashion weeks, and all the showrunners are men. You know what I mean? All the stylists backstage are primarily women. You're looking at maybe 5 to 600 women backstage doing all the hair, and there's maybe 5 men running around running the entire situation. And I'd love to see more women in power doing the running of the shows because I think things could go different. Same with I think we saw this last season in fashion too, like a lot of the big houses are being taken over by younger people, Dior, Chanel, all of these big fashion icons, and almost every single one of those brands this year put another man into the position. And I know there has to be females that are wanting those jobs as well and that are working for these brands. So I just feel it's something that we really, as women, need to talk about more so we can actually see people move into those roles because if not, we're just going to be stuck in this cycle forever, I think. You know?
Yeah, 100%. So really quickly before, because I have a question directly regarding everything that you said, but before you mentioned fashion, and I know that you have a, a a growing platform and also a focus in doing things in fashion. So share with the audience a little bit about that so they understand how you have seen this firsthand and what part that you really play in all of that.
So I'd say, I mean, going all the way back to one of my first ever jobs was at a makeup counter. I worked for Origins for a long time. I worked for Clinique. I worked for Chanel. Chanel was my first gateway into the fashion industry. I worked at a beauty counter, but I was really lucky to do a lot of shows and get to do high profile makeup, travel up to Aspen and do different things and food and wine festivals and things like that. So that was my first step into that. And that was over 15 years ago now. So in the last 15 years, all the people that have hired me have been men. Sometimes my direct management might be female. And then it led me into going back into the fashion world this last year. I just started doing fashion weeks and going and doing hair backstage. And it has been the most growth I've had in probably 3 days working backstage. I grew and learned so many things that I took home that I have not learned in the last 10 years because you're in a room with 5, 600 other stylists that are all specializing in something else. But again, the people that are running it don't know any of those things. They can't jump in, they can't help, they can't do it. So it would be so cool to see people who are in with their hands working on the things moving into those positions because I think that would work much better with leadership. Um, Especially in the fashion world because it is a very intense, quick, high functioning, stressful environment. And I find that women tend to make things run a little bit smoother because things don't get quite as elevated because they know exactly what is happening and can look around the room and see everything that's happening, not just one direct problem.
Mhm.
And so that's been my view of the fashion industry in the last few years. And then coming back from Paris Fashion Week this last fall, I'm about to go into the fall winter season for in March in Paris. And then I'll be going to New York right after for bridal week. And like I said, I love all the men that I work with. I think they're fabulous. I would just love to see more women that I work with rising up into those ranks because I think there's just a huge disconnect.
I love everything that you're saying and love what you're doing. I have a friend, a dear friend who started to get involved in that world and area, and her world opened up so much and just she absolutely loved it.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, but it is the highs and the lows are equally the same. So they're so awesome.
I love that. I love that, and I admire it. I admire anybody in this industry who, um, is so in deep with their art. I fell in love with the business side of the industry, and so all of my time and energy really was spent there. But in the
Yeah.
very beginning of my career, I worked for a couple manufacturers and got to work some bigger shows, and it was just fun to see people who are so creatively driven and the energy and the excitement and the tempo and all of that. It's really, really fun. So I love that, and I love that you've gotten to do something so expansive. Doing something as expansive as you're doing is a huge, I think, inspiration. Even if you go to cosmetology students, there's a lot of cosmetology students. Like I'm from Houston, Texas. You go to a cosmetology school that maybe isn't the most inspirational cosmetology school. Not that I know that there's very many inspirational cosmetology
Absolutely.
schools, but if you go to some specifically that are, say, run more by community colleges and all of that, they don't consider their job to be to inspire those students. And
Absolutely.
their job is to get them to pass state board. And in doing that, when you go to the schools, especially in the earlier classes, so sometimes the graduating seniors, they're like so burnt out and so grumpy, but in the
Yes.
middle or the beginning, if you were to ask them, like, what do you want to do in this industry? Their eyes are wide. And there's many of them that are like, I want to do celebrities or I want to do fashion or I want to do whatever. And a lot of times when you go into the salon straight out of cosmetology school, you get kind of burned. Like you don't ever see a, like, where's my end to be able to do that thing that I
How
dreamed
do I
about?
do
So you're
this?
making that dream come alive. How did that, you talked about Chanel and the makeup counter, but let's say without Chanel and the makeup counter, how do you get that opening or find a space? Because to get to the end of, I'm going to eventually get to this question. If we want more women to eventually be in a place that, like, maybe where they get a little bit more power, a little bit more coordination, organization, and attachment to the creative, the creativity that it could be involved in an operation, if that makes sense, because I do
Yes.
believe that the best businesses in the world are the most creative. And you have to have creative minds to really see that come to fruition, not just operational people. And but in order to do that, we have to have people along the way who believe that they can get there or aspire to do that. And sometimes when you have someone who's in that baseline cosmetology space and they say, I want to do celebrities or I want to be in fashion, they get into the salon. We're lucky if they stay here for 3 years, but let's say they do. How do they finally find that opening? Like, where do you finally find that way to keep that momentum
Yes.
moving where you don't, fall prey to never believing that that's possible because you never see it around you?
Absolutely. I think the biggest way so that's I'm so grateful to be in the position I am in right now because I am building a team for New York and taking over 30 stylists with me out for bridal week. So that is 30 opportunities for these women to it puts you in a room, right? So I like to be very honest and blunt with people because especially if I was to go to a cosmetology school or I was talking with younger stylists, I just like to be very frank. If you are going to get somewhere in this industry, you're going to have to invest into yourself.
Mhm.
Um, there are uh, so many hairstylists in the world. There are so many makeup artists in the world. There are so many people that are trying to make it
Mhm.
that the best way to find yourself in those avenues is to go and put yourself there. So my biggest with my stylist, even at my salon, my biggest thing I'm always telling them is you need to spend the money that you're asking people to spend on you. So if you're sitting in the chair and you're charging a certain amount of money, you need to also be willing to invest that money back into yourself that you're making. And I think what happens a lot, you get out of beauty school, you get into a salon, and you need to make money. Like that's the bare minimum basics. You're like, I need to live, I need to survive, I need to build my book. And so a lot of that inspirational joy that you felt when you first entered beauty school starts to get hit by reality, right? Oh, my rent's due. Oh, this is happening. I can't go, invest this money into doing a fashion week that I want to do because I need this. So, in the beginning of my career, I worked 2 to 3 jobs with doing hair as well to always keep an extra fund going for education and for broadening my experiences. So, if you want to join a fashion week, there's many ways to do it. You can just fly yourself out to New York, Paris, London, Hong Kong, wherever the fashion week is happening. You can bring your kit and you can literally show up at shows and try to get booked. The most you're usually going to get is maybe like 2 to 500, depending on your skill set and who you know. And that's the hardest part is who do you know? We don't know anybody, right? Because we want to get into these things. So the route that I took a few years ago was going through production companies. So what I do is I work with a company called The Lab right now, and I pay them my dues to go to Paris or New York or wherever I want to be. And that guarantees me a show in at least 3 shows, and I'm getting all the Getty images back. I'm building my portfolio. And then, like I said, it's putting you in a room for connection. And that's what you're really investing in is yourself and your networking skills. Because if you cannot network in this industry, you're going to fall flat really, really fast.
Mhm.
Um, and so by investing in yourself and going out and finding whether it's fashion week, it's editorial shoots, it's film, it's TV. I know you're in Houston, I'm in Austin. Like there's a lot of film and TV work out here. And so it's just investing in yourself to go and be in the rooms. And that can be scary because you don't know anyone yet. And you maybe haven't even worked in that yet. But I love the phrase fake it till you make it because you have to have that drive and that insanity to believe that you're going to make it because that's the only way you're going to get somewhere in my eyes, and this is what I tell my teams. So I believe in overly confident execution and to the point of delusion sometimes. Like you literally have to be a little delusional and believe in yourself so much because so many people told me, "Oh my god, I can't believe you're spending thousands of dollars to go out and pay someone to work. Are you crazy?" Like that's insane. People find it insane. But I came back from that trip, was job offered 3 days later, got a position, met so many people through it that now I have this whole network of other people in this beauty world. So, my first fashion week I ever worked, I love to call it like summer camp for beauty professionals
Mhm.
because you are in a room with 5 to 600 other women who do everything that you do, and they're from all over the world. I mean, they're coming from Italy, they're coming from Paris, they're coming from New York, I mean, wherever. And then you're also with all these models, which is so inspiring because then you get to see another part of that industry of other people trying to make it and invest in themselves as well. And so I think the biggest takeaway is really just believing in yourself, even when nobody else might. And when people are also telling you that, hey, this might not be a good idea, you kind of have to take the leap and believe you can do it and show them that you can and show them, prove them that you're wrong. I know it's hard in our industry too. A lot of people don't still, which is wild to me because we've come so far, but a lot of people don't necessarily find hairstyling or being a makeup artist or a wedding professional a real job. You know what I mean? And so, like I said, even when you go into beauty school, people are like, are you sure you want to do that? Maybe you should go to college. Maybe you should do this. Um, and you just have to let that stuff not seep in and just keep continuing the steady belief that you are going to make it. And I also think that involves growing friends and other stylists in your industry that have that same mentality so you can all build each other up, because it's really hard if it's just you and people are telling you no. You've got to have other girls on your side that are like, no, we're going to do this. It's going to happen and we're going to make it happen. And every time I've done that, it's paid off tenfold in insane ways. So I'm really excited for our upcoming New York trip and Paris because, like I said, it gives 30 other stylists the same opportunity that I just had to lead a team themselves for the next one, or to go back, or to also get swept away at a fashion week. I mean, the last one I was just at in Paris, 2 stylists I know were signed there backstage from companies. One of the models that I worked with, the manager of Kim Kardashian's brand Skims was in front row. And one of the models that walked signed a $2 million contract at the last show I was at. Like, her life just completely changed. I cried watching it happen. It was so cool. So, like I said too, putting yourself in rooms with people that are trying just as hard as you and chasing a dream that seems unattainable, there's nothing better than that because it's just so inspiring.
That everything that you said. So I think that's my next question, even going back to when we were talking about men sort of running the industry and then wanting to see more women step forward. It starts exactly where you're talking about, where it starts at that very basic beginning. There's got to be
Yeah.
people willing to not just invest, not just invest money, not just invest time,
Yeah.
invest the invest their fears, invest their concerns, their willingness to do something that might feel a little bit like it may have a payoff, it may not. No matter what, my favorite definition of confidence really has is not the way that it's positioned to us typically. My favorite definition of confidence is being 100% certain that if I fall on my face, I can get back up. Like that is all that you
Yes.
really need in order to have confidence. You don't even have to believe you can do it. You just have to know that if I do anything other than die, I can
Yes.
literally move on, right? And
Absolutely.
so knowing that there's no reason for me to not do anything. And so let's say we get more people invested in that and believing that this is a path that they can take. And regardless of where they are, regardless of where they're from, or regardless of what they can see and find, which in the age of social media, you can find almost anything and
That is
almost
true.
any opportunity to chase. But in that instance, then I look at this, how do women infiltrate this very male dominated leadership in all aspects? And my question is because most of the women who I know that have made it very far either started the company, so they literally
Right.
made it far because they started the company, but it was a dogfight, right? And most
Yep.
of them live very much in like masculine energy. Like they are some of
Yeah.
the most brutal people and
Yeah, they have to
executives
be
you'll ever meet
hard.
because they have to be. They have
Yep.
to say, "You're not gonna screw with me," right?
Yeah.
In order to do that. And then they usually surround themselves with powerful men who exude all of the energy and confidence that can step into a room and have those conversations. Um, but in order to see that really broken into, like, what's it going to take? And why hasn't it happened as of now? Why is it still men who are chasing? And I ask this specifically, or men who are in the positions of power. I ask this specifically because still to this day, and I think about brands because I know so much about the back end of manufacturing and that sort of world and the hair product space.
Yeah.
And that has been wrong since I've been in the industry.
Yeah.
Manufacturers have not been able to sell in well to salons. They haven't been able to stick well in salons. They haven't been able to inspire hairstylists to sell their products. It has been a massive gap in our industry. And yet I've been on many panels in front of a lot of people at upper level sales organizations. And no matter what I've ever said as a salon owner, as a hairstylist, no one ever listens or actually does whatever it is that I've suggested for them to do to bridge that
Yeah.
gap. And they still all know better, right? They still know better. So,
Yes.
how do we infiltrate that? How do we change that narrative? What needs to happen?
That's such a tough question because it's something I ponder a lot as well. I'm like, how do we get to those ranks, right? So to your to exactly what you're saying, I couldn't find what I wanted, so I started my own salon. You know what I mean? And so you see that a lot with brands right now too. I own a company called Red and Wild, and we house over 80 clean skin, hair, and makeup brands. And the cool thing about that aspect is, or that avenue, is the clean beauty world is run by a lot of women because it's trying to break away from conventional beauty, conventional skin standards. And so the same thing has happened, right? These women couldn't find what they wanted or they couldn't find the job that they wanted. So they said, well, I'm going to go start my own,
Mhm.
you know? Um, and I don't know if that's what it's going to take is enough brands starting on their own and enough women going, I'm not going to chase your leadership anymore. I'm just going to make my own. And I'm going to make my own teams with women that are leading with grace and softness, not being living in that masculine energy and not living in that really cutthroat lifestyle of business because that is where we are stuck at. And then it's hard because if women do get into management or higher leader up positions in some of these bigger companies, to your point, they have to mask, they have to shift, they have to change how they would normally maybe go about something. They wouldn't do that way in their salon, but now that they're working with this brand, in order to keep their job, in order to keep the sales, in order to keep everything going, they have to take on that kind of hard ass get shit done, like, I don't wanna be messed with, right? Because you will get walked over. You will be walked over. It's so easy. It happens by females and males. It's a tough industry. So, I don't know if it's gonna take all of us branching out on our own and making the world that we want to see, or if there could be a shift in the next few years, um, if some of these brands can eventually see it, but in the last 25, 50 years, we haven't seen that happen. You know, so it's kind of hard to say that, oh, there's just going to be some dramatic change because I don't know how the world would just shift that way. I think it's really going to take a revolution of sorts, if you will, you know, of women coming up and just saying, okay, well, I don't want those jobs. I'm not going to use that hair care line anymore because it doesn't follow with my business ethics. It doesn't follow where my heart's going and it doesn't stand up to my standards, you know? And I would love to see those types of companies rise above some of the conventional old companies, you know, because I think especially in the more boutique hair world, you've seen that shift, but we need it to happen in bigger spaces. We need it to happen in the Avedas, the Redkins, like the huge companies, you know. Kevin Murphy, you know, that's a brand I absolutely love, I adore. I've used Kevin Murphy for the 17 years I've been behind the chair. I've been trying to become a session stylist with them for 5 years, and I keep seeing men who I know and maybe don't even have as much experience as me going into these roles. And it's very frustrating because I know I have the time, I know I've got the education, I know I've got the experience. But what I think happens is, you know, I look like every other girl hairstylist out there, right? So there's nothing super eye catching about that. But you put like a fabulous man in charge who's very good looking, and this is the hard part too, women listen, right? We are kind of conditioned to listen to that. So if you walked into, you know, Sephora or even just like a Nordstrom or something, right? And you look around the beauty section, you're going to see predominantly females working there, and you're going to see a few fabulous gay men, right? And every time they give you a compliment, it feels better than when a girl gives you a compliment. I don't know why. You know what I mean? I don't know why that's a real thing, but it is. And that's something that I think we also have to look at is our mindset, because we're still all chasing those roles, right? Why do I want to be a Kevin Murphy session stylist so bad if I've watched that they're not doing what I think should be happening in the industry?
So
You
why
know, like that's a tough thing to grapple with. So then I have to think about that on my end where like this year I was telling the girl, I was like, I'm just going to find something else. I've been asking for 3 years about this. I'm going to go with a different company. So now my whole salon right now, I'm looking at bringing in some other styling lines. Will I get rid of Kevin Murphy? No, because I love how the product works. My clients are diehards because I've used it for 17 years. But in order to expand my growth,
Mhm,
it's not going to happen with that company.
mhm.
So do I have to start my own thing? Or do I need to go find a company that follows in those footsteps? Um, and I think to your point, it's going to take a lot of people in the creative end and in the back end to make different choices and pull away from the conventional companies.
Mhm.
And that's a tough big ask, you know? But I think we can do it if we really try. And like your podcast here, like if we can just get the conversations going,
Mhm.
there's always power in that. If enough people come together and enough people have a problem with something, that's where change happens. So I think we kind of have to just not get mad, but get a little fire under us to go and say, okay, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to go find something else that aligns. Or if you have the means, start something, you know, join join a team that you know has those same values as you do.
I think it's interesting everything that you're saying for so many reasons. Going back to my salon owner journey to 13, 14 years ago, I was I had a pretty big team, and what I was noticing from the brand that I was working with at the time was just a lack of follow through. They said, everything that they could to get in the door and then it disappeared. And I was,
Always.
of course, right? And I had
Yep.
a stylist on my team that the only reason that I brought the brand in, so she was starting with me when I opened. I had been open for 6 years and then sort of rebranded, grew, all of that stuff. And this stylist, I was looking for a new brand anyway. And she was on track to become a national educator with this brand. So she said, "Will you
Yes.
with this? Because I have to work in a salon, da 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 da." Da." So I looked at it and it was fine. And I was looking to replace what I was working with anyway. So you know, whether they said all the right things or I was really inspired by her, whatever it was, we opened with that brand and it was fine. It did its job for the moment. There was nothing really wrong with it, but there was also nothing really right with it. And me
Yeah.
personally, I was not connected to it. I was selling and using a different brand in the salon that was a small, sort of French inspired brand that was very clean. But it was more expensive for that time. I mean, at that time, back in 2011, it was not every day that you were spending $80 to buy shampoo and conditioner, right? It's
Yeah.
normal now, but it wasn't
Yep.
even just, 14, 15 years ago. It wasn't normal.
Yeah.
So it seemed very expensive to have a $34 shampoo, $36 conditioner, a hairspray that was $36. That was very foreign at that time. But that's what I was selling. And eventually, this stylist fell in love with a boy in Cabo and moved to Australia. So I took it as the window that this means that it's time to go find the brand that I really want to be working with. And instead of doing what I feel like we all do, which is I want a new brand, I'm going to brand shop. I
Yep.
sat quiet and I wrote down everything that I wanted in a brand. And I handed that list to every salesperson that I knew. I said, "Bring me
Right.
only what fits within this." And so what happens when you brand shop that way is you don't get like sideswiped by the sexiness of these brands, which are to their, to be fair, wonderful in business. And they have
Yes.
brilliant marketers behind them who know exactly what to say to make you feel like this is what I need, even though I didn't know it. I never even knew this existed. And so now I've forgotten everything that's actually important to me. And I just think that that must be the thing that's going to, create
Yeah.
the world for me.
Fix everything.
100%. So I ended up finding a brand that at that point in time, the ugliest packaging, no one had ever heard of it. I am in one of the highest per capita areas in Texas and possibly in the United States. And so these are women who are flying to Paris to go get their hair
Yeah.
cut while they're, getting their color done at the salon. Like these are people who buying $100 shampoo or conditioner that at Neiman's that probably existed already at that point. Like that was what they were doing naturally. And so now I'm going to ask
Yeah.
them to buy something that is clean. Clean beauty wasn't really a big thing at that time.
No.
I'm asking them to do all of this stuff, a brand they've never heard of. The packaging is hideous. It's all of these things. But we ended up doing very well with it. But it makes me think I've been a massive advocate, but people will look at you like you have 10 heads to say, stop bringing in brands, number one, that you just think you're going to sell. Number
Yep.
two, that has the best and hottest influencer attached to it, the best and hottest marketing, the sexiest social media. Stop looking at social media as the like pinnacle of whether or not the brand is going to do well in your business. But
Yeah.
it's so hard to tell people those things because we are such an aesthetically driven industry and we are very emotion first. And so emotion first, that's what marketing is set up for, right? It's set up to attack your emotions. So one of the things in this whole bigger conversation about men versus women, my question is, and what I hear a lot, and some of the things that you were saying, and then what I've recognized a lot, women as a whole are exceptional at sales. But women as a
Yes.
whole hate sales because they don't understand they don't understand how what they're actually doing all of the time with their feminine selves as they are selling constantly. But the minute that you frame it that way, they recoil,
Mhm.
right? So part of the reason why men are so exceptional and end up climbing up the ladder is because most of them could care less. Like many of them will say
Yes.
whatever they need to, right?
Exactly.
So
Yes.
how do we, as women, then, because I 100% believe if I have a problem, like the first person that I need to look at is myself.
Agreed.
So if we really need to look at ourselves reflectively to see how do we break through this thing, this ceiling,
Yes.
what is it that we could be doing better to be more connected to what really is sales when it's something that feels foreign, we don't like it, maybe our only view of it has been through men's eyes and not through what we
Mhm.
naturally do when we're asking for our boyfriend to go pick us something up on an errand, which is 100% a sale. So
Yeah.
how can we like feel more confident just like excelling in that world of saying, you know what? Me. Pick me.
Yeah.
Let it be
Yeah.
me.
Pick me.
How do we get to that space so that we can break through some of it? Because I think a lot of it lives there.
I totally agree with you. I think a lot of it lives inside of us. And like I said, I mean, there's so many instances that you can see yourself doing that, right? Where you're like, you still are pandering, even though you might feel a certain way. It doesn't mean you're acting that way, right? So I think it kind of goes back to that mindset that I was talking about of I love what you just said about like you wrote a list down of what you need in a brand and that's the only way you're going to shop, right? I see this a lot like in the clean beauty sector of retail sales that I have at my other store, where people come into shop kind of like that with like a list, a checklist of it can't have this ingredient, it can't have this, it needs to have this kind of packaging because that, goes with my ecosystem of like what I feel is good for the world. I find that we are definitely moving that way, and shoppers are becoming smarter and more educated in what they are purchasing, what they want to put into the world, what they don't want to put into the world. And so I think that mindset has to shift not only from, okay, what am I purchasing? What's in this shampoo, right? Because we have gone from, like you said, let's think back to the early 2000s, 2008, 2010. There was no such term as clean beauty. That wasn't even a thing that we talked about. Um, but I've seen from that time to 2025 now a huge shift in how people shop for their cosmetics and their hair care, their body care, their food.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's taking that to the next level and changing your mindset, not only about how you shop, but why you shop. Why are you shopping that brand? What is behind the brand, minus, like you're saying, just the sexy packaging, the amazing Instagram, we're inundated with so much, even just influencer and celebrity social media. I mean, every celebrity has a hair care line now. Every singer, whatever, has a makeup line. I mean, it's so hard to decipher. And then you've got TikTok and you've got Instagram, and you have all these social platforms with influencers screaming at you that this is going to be the best thing for your hair. They have never touched your hair. They have no idea what's good for your hair. So it really goes back to us behind the chair, educating the clients as well as ourselves on that mindset. So, A, you need this product because of XYZ for your hair. And also, I stand behind this product because of XYZ of my, you know, boundaries of what can and cannot happen, like in a business, right? So, it's looking for brands that are women run, or that that there's people higher up in there, or going to brands that are led and are started by women. And I think that's really what it's going to take, is just breaking away and saying, no, we're not going to use that. Or someone eventually making it high up enough and going, hey, this isn't working. But to your point, you've been in those rooms.
Mhm.
You've had those conversations, and people don't necessarily listen. But then when, quarterlies come up and sales aren't good, they're looking at you guys going, "Why did you go into that salon and they don't have this?" We picked up a brand at my salon 2, 3 years ago, kind of same situation. A stylist brought it to me. She really, really wanted it. She loved it. They had sold her, right? So I picked it up. It's a great brand. I actually absolutely love how it works, but it's called Mr. Smith, right? Just that alone, right off the bat, like, I had a client maybe 2 weeks after we picked it up, and she's like, "I don't want something called Mister," you know? And I'm like,
Mhm.
"I feel you, girl, like, I feel the same." And so then I was sitting there going, "Why did I just buy this?
Mhm.
Why did I buy this? I don't like the packaging. I don't like the backing of the brand, but someone was sold on it, and I loved them and appreciated
Mhm.
them, so I wanted to invest in my stylist
Mhm.
because she felt that she could sell it."
Mhm.
But that's where my mindset as an owner has to shift, and not emotionally purchase based on what my stylists want. We need to be more thoughtful and make sure that everything that your brand, your salon, your brand stands for is actually in your salon. And that's something that going into 2026, I've really been looking at my own salon, is what do I have in here that doesn't align with what I'm speaking or what I'm thinking? And that's going to come with some big shifts, which are scary. But just like I said, investing in yourself is the same thing as investing in your salon. If I don't make that switch and hold true to who I am, how would I expect my stylist to stay and believe in me? If you're not practicing what you're preaching. And so we have to inform our clients, we have to inform our staff, and we have to get that mindset to trickle down from behind the chair to the stylist, to the consumer, to the client. And then I think that too, if you can move enough people, that will change the industry as well. And I've seen that happen greatly in the cosmetic industry in the last few years.
Mhm.
And I would love to see it happen more in the hair care world. It is a little harder because there's not as much clean beauty when it comes to hair care because we are chemically changing hair.
Mhm.
We are using chemicals. We are using things that just can't be clean, right? But clean is also a very hard word to dissect. There's a clean standard at Sephora where they go and put a little green
Mhm.
leaf on stuff, right? And so this again, the consumer has to be very knowledgeable because just because someone says it's clean, what does that mean to you? Does that mean it's eco-friendly packaging? Does that mean that it doesn't have certain ingredients in it? When I was over in Paris, the EU has a very long list of things that they do not allow into cosmetics. Some of the stuff on that list, though, is nothing that would ever go into cosmetics ever anyways. So you really have to be so knowledgeable because I get a lot of clients too that are like you said, they're flying to Paris, they're going to Milan, they're going to other places and getting things done and they'll come back and show me a brand, and they're like, "Oh, I picked up this David Mallet while I was in Paris. I absolutely love it. It's clean, it's gorgeous, it's whatever." Another great brand I love, but it's a man. It's his name. That's his whole thing, but his hair care is clean and amazing. But it's not running that list and what on that list do you really care about? And you have to really that's the hard part is I think every consumer, every client really has to become more knowledgeable
Mhm.
in order to do that, you know? And that I think goes back to us behind the chair. That's our job. Your job is, yes, to cut someone's hair. Your job is, yes, to give them the fabulous color they want or the extension. But if you're doing them a disservice, if you're giving them that and then just sending them out the door
Mhm.
and you're not educating them on how to take care of it or why they need these certain things. And then to the same point, like they're coming to you as an authority of how to look or how they want to be seen by the rest of the world. And I think we need to find more confidence in ourselves and more power in ourselves to realize that you are the authority on that. And it's you. It's not the brand that you're backing. It's not the other people. It's you. You are the one that your clients are coming to see. You are the one that they believe can make them feel their best and how the world is going to view them. And so I think there's so much power in that. And if we educate our clients on that, down to even why we use a brand or why we don't use a brand, I think that that will outreach dramatically.
Interesting. Um, some of the things that you hit on and where our conversation started about, men versus women in position of power. I have always found it through everything that you said, and bravo to you, by the way, because my business partner in one of my businesses and I started a, let's say, consulting slash product distributor is how people would recognize it, but meaning we house, wholesale brands. But our goal was never to be a product distributor. In fact, we've looked for multitudes of other words, but in our industry, it's very hard for people to identify a whole new sector of business. And our point and position was always to help salons really realize their power in the retail space and to help them dive deeper into the actual retail aspect of business and the power that a salon really has. The foundation of that is, and it's something that you have in some ways said directly and in some ways said very indirectly through all of the things you've mentioned, is that is it that we need, and eventually it could turn into that, more women in positions of power, or is it also that it would be wonderful if the women who are in this industry, who are running the majority of the businesses that are actually funding the beauty industry as a whole, realized
Yeah.
already how powerful they are. And sometimes we don't understand that, like, we look at something like, and I'll just, because it's already been mentioned, I'll use L'Oreal as an example. This isn't to, anyone out there that's a L'Oreal salon and that's your choice and you really truly believe that that's what is best aligned for your business, then go for it, right? For me, that is not the answer. Conglomerate brands are not the answer because of things that I've personally experienced in the industry that they do with ingredients and marketing and all of that stuff. So it's not the
Yeah.
answer for my business. But we have a very loud and powerful voice that's called money
Yes.
and influence and attention. Those things are so valuable. And what I hear you say, even though you haven't directly said this, is there is power already sitting there. Like the hairstylist, literally. And just a couple of podcasts ago, I had this conversation with someone who's not from the industry, but he has a lot of family who has been in this industry. And I said, in my view, I believe that the professional hairstylist could change the world if they really knew their power and understood. I think we understand our influence in clients' lives, but we don't understand what we can do with it, right? We don't
Absolutely.
understand what we can do with
Absolutely.
it. So when you think about this space, if salons who are constantly complaining about the things that a lot of brands do, if people who already know a lot of the core of what you're talking about, when the vast majority don't, the vast majority do not know ingredients. I'm a science geek. I
Yes.
imagine you have done a lot of research because of the businesses that you're invested in. Like, I am crazy about the things that are there. And in being that you're from Austin and then you also were in Denver, two places that are highly invested in clean long before
Yes.
the other areas in the country. So you're generally in a culture that's common practice. In Houston, Texas, that is not common practice. Like,
Right.
we are not talking about clean beauty very often unless we've heard it talked about by some influencer or celebrity or whatever.
Mhm.
But there is such power in where we put our time, attention, and money as business owners, even on the smallest level. So when we may feel like we don't have a lot of power to like get in those rooms, you don't need to be in those rooms to make a big statement to those rooms, right? The top line and bottom line makes a big statement in those rooms. So my not question, but I'd ask you, what would you say to business owners who maybe don't want, or even to a hairstylist who maybe doesn't want to go aim to be the person that's in control of these things, but also feels very much the way that both you and I feel, that women could have a lot bigger impact in here. What impact can they make that doesn't have to be them taking over those positions right now in the space
Yeah.
they're in?
Yeah, I think if, you're a stylist who does wanna see or, stylist, esthetician, whatever facet of the beauty
Mhm.
industry you're in, because I think this spans the entire beauty industry. I mean, we could be talking about a makeup artist at a counter at Nordstrom. We could be talking about a hairstylist that's renting her own booth in a salon suite, or the hairstylist who works at a commission salon, booth renters. I mean, there's so many different aspects. But I think if you are someone like that, where you're like, I'm happy where I am, I'm happy with my job, I'm happy with how things are for me personally. I'm not looking, because a lot of us aren't looking to climb to power. A lot of people don't want to be salon owners and start their own brand, because I mean, that's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work, and you do sometimes like lose some stuff in that. But I think what we can do to empower other females behind the chair, behind the bed, wherever they are in their rooms, in their esthetician rooms, their hair chairs. I think the education from the salons is really going to be what's going to change that. And I don't know when, because then I look at that and I go, okay, well, then how do we reach all the girls in studios that work alone? You know what I mean? And the only time they get sold something is when a rep comes in and shows them something, or they're going to Salon Service Group or Armstrong or already, whatever's in your state, Cosmoprof. Um, you're just going in there and shopping whatever's on the shelf, just like the other girl going into Sephora shopping whatever's on that shelf. So I don't know how we reach those people, but that is something I would like to figure out because I think it's almost like you and I are creating a new job, right? I think that there just needs to be more education. There needs to be more open conversations. And those conversations need to be in an educational point, just like when a brand comes in to sell you something. Oh, our hairspray works like this and you're going to love it. Please pick it up. There needs to be education coming in and going, okay, here's the backing of how this company works. And I think we need to start asking more questions like that, probably, not just about what the company makes, but where do they stand? Who's in charge? And again, just shifting that mindset to that of like, we have to make that just as important as the stuff we're putting on our skin. I mean, if anyone listening to this is, someone who buys organic foods, right? Why are you buying them? There's a reason. So, what is the reason for you buying your hair care? Are you shopping clean for a certain reason? And then with that, if we care, and I think a lot of women do, if we care, we have to make it another tier of shopping. So when you're being marketed to, we can't help it, but then when you go to actually shop something, not only does how it works, how it looks, because that is really what we all care about, right? Like that's number one thing. You're going to see something and do you like how it looks? But then it needs to go, does it work? And why am I backing this brand? I think it has to go deeper. And so, again, I think that comes back to salon owners, but that also has to go into the reps, the people going out selling these brands. And they need to be given the education on the brands because a lot of times, I'm sure when someone comes in to sell you something, they don't know any part of maybe the brand backstory. That almost never ever happens in the hair world. We do so many trainings for Ren and Wild, and every training starts with the founder, who's usually female.
Mhm.
And this is what I love about female founders too. They take the time to get on and talk to an entire team, and they'll tell them why they started it. And all of it stems from an issue that they couldn't get met.
Mm.
So it's it's a really big, hard, vast topic that I think requires so many changes, but the biggest thing I can say is I think our mindset has to change just as a whole as females of how we want to partake and how we want to spend our money. Because to your point, like we're the ones investing all the money into these beauty things. Men aren't going out. I mean, some men are, but like most men aren't going out and buying $46 shampoos and conditioners.
Mhm.
They're going to Target. They're going and getting something there. They're not walking into a salon and picking something up. If men are using that, it's usually because their girlfriends are buying it for them, or it is a man who goes to a high end salon and they appreciate those things. But we have to use our dollars kind of like when like when people say, like, vote with your dollar, it's the same thing. You need to vote in even in your own little industry, right? As small as that is, you need to put your money where you feel like it's going to come back to you and not give it to brands that you feel like, to your point, they're so big, you're just going to be another, another chair. So I think kind of putting our money where our mouth is would be not the nicest way to say it, but the most direct way to say it is, why are we spending the money on these brands if we don't value what they're bringing to the industry?
And it is important because for many different reasons, but because a lot of times we don't feel, and I think this happens, I mean, even when you're talking about, when you talk about voting, any aspect of life, a lot of times we don't feel like that one little shift is going to make enough of an impact to actually go through the uncomfortability of it, or no one's really going to hear it or feel it or see it. But the fact of the matter is, like, and being very close to a female founder who's owned a brand since they founded the brand in 1997, and was clean before it was cool and before it was sexy and like all of
Mhm.
this stuff, and have watched her. She just made a huge bold move. I'm so proud of what she's done in this industry. When you look at the struggles that a small company, now small in this industry um for a hair care manufacturer, because people, we don't have any concept of how expensive the hair care world is. We have no idea. We look at it like, I'm a salon and I spend, $30,000 with you every year, and I feel like
Yes.
that means that I spend a lot of money, because to me that's a lot of money, but it's
It's a drop in the bucket
like
for
it
them.
pays for nothing, right? It pays
Yep.
for nothing. And the money gets split so many different ways. It's like it pays for nothing, but it's not our job necessarily to understand the entire manufacturing and just that whole process. But one thing that we should understand is part of the reason why you look at the bigger brands, and the bigger brands, a lot of people won't leave. I've had conversations with owners of salons because they're like, but that brand gives me ABCXYZ, right? I get all this free
Yes.
stuff, or I get all this education, or I get whatever. You do. And yes, for a period of time, if that company that you move to doesn't have the same back bar program or the same education program or the same whatever, I understand that that's going to feel like a sacrifice. But there's two things that happen when you are aligned with your brand. Number one, you're going to sell more. And when you sell more of something, you're earning more revenue and profit, especially in the hair care space. And therefore, you're actually able to do a lot more things on your own, and you don't need a brand to do those things for you. That's the first thing. The second thing is, it's going to take like backing brands who are doing the right thing in a more impactful way for them to be able to serve the salon
Yes.
industry in the way that these conglomerates are serving. And the reason the conglomerates can serve at the level that they do, honestly, a lot of times has nothing to do with the professional hair care part of their brand, because it's such a small, it might be 6% of their total overall revenue. And so they almost look like their participation in the professional industry as part of their marketing plan, much more than part of their sales or profit plan.
Right.
They allow
Yeah.
hairstylists to market to their consumers, and so they get known more. But if we want to see brands be able to invest more in our businesses, especially ones that are professionally focused and don't have a big consumer avenue, we have to invest in those brands. And it
Yes.
takes a shift, it takes a little courage, it takes a little letting go of some things, but choosing, I guess, which side of this whole thing that you want to stand on.
I completely agree. Yeah, you just have to decide you just have to spend the money where you want the money to go, and I do think if enough of us do that, there will be enough of a shift in the industry, because it's been trickling and it's been slow and I can see it happening. So I think if we keep the conversations going and we keep educating people and we move towards that, it doesn't feel like on a daily basis that maybe that purchase is making a grand gesture in the world. But as we've seen time and time again, things do change in numbers, right? So if we get enough of us to back other brands or start new brands, we're going to see a shift towards them.
So, Carly, you have, it seems, big plans this year with a lot of the things that you're doing in fashion, just spaces that I think are, and I know are very inspiring to people in this industry and certainly business owners. You have your hands in a lot that has trickled out
I
through the
do.
course of this conversation.
Yes.
When you look at your career and you look at getting involved in so much, how, as a hairstylist, did it ever feel, and you may not have cognizantly thought about it like this, but did it ever feel like all of these aspects and things that you wanted to do in this industry were possible? And how do you balance, because that's a conversation that keeps coming up with every podcast guest that I have who's from this industry. They, the industry is burnout, the industry is whatever. You seem to be just diving into more. So, how do you, number one, have the confidence that we were talking about to just bounce into so many different spaces? And then number two, maintain whatever balance looks like to you, because I know my version and definition of balance is a lot different than a lot of people. So how do you do all of that? Because I think there's people who could listen to this and be like, this is totally overwhelming, like I don't want to, and I am not going to do all of this stuff, and that's great for you and whatever, but I'm going to sit here in my little, in my little town doing my thing. What would you say to people out there, and what helps you create that confidence, and then what also has sort of expanded your mind in so many different places?
So I will say I had a lot of dreams when I first started in this industry. And my first big dream, like high school Carly, she wanted to be a fashion designer. You know what I mean? I never thought I'd go into the beauty sector. Um, but I did, right? And so um I have found myself in so many rooms of opportunities and I just try to never say no. I will say yes to just about anything. One of my favorite sayings is I'll try anything 3 times because you don't know really if you like it the first time because you might do terrible at it, right? Or you might kill it, but then you go and do it a second time and you don't do so good. So I say try everything 1 to 3 times and the confidence. This is something I talk to my team a lot about because I think people look at me and they talk to me and they're like, wow, you are so confident. How do you do that? It's just a practice like anything else. Um, and that is the best way I can describe how I get
Mhm,
through feeling confident and making sure I exude that energy to people is I think a lot of people in our industry are familiar with the term masking.
mm,
And that's become a very big word, big buzzword lately, but it's something that I do find true
mhm.
because we have to do that in our industry. So if you want to come off as confident, when you're behind the chair, you're talking to your people with confidence. You just need to stay that person in other avenues in life. So when I'm getting on this call or I'm getting on a call with a big vendor, whoever it is, I may not be feeling the best that day, but I need to pull it together. I need to mask. I need to get it up, and it just needs to happen. Um, as for balance, I think I feel like I'm going to have a very non like what most people would say about balance. I don't think that's something that if that is something in your life that you feel that you need to have, it's going to be hard to get ahead in this industry. I don't think it's impossible. But I think you have to be willing to realize that if you're going to put all your tuppence down on yourself, you're not going to have balance right away. You can't be up at a certain time and do this and get to yoga and do your clients and pick up your kids from school and do, like, you're not going to do all of that. You're going to need community. And so the way I find balance is through my community because I can't do everything. It's just literally not possible. So everything that people see me doing is also because I've built an amazing team that backs me to allow me to do all of these things. So when I'm gone in Paris or New York, I mean, I'm sometimes out there for 2 weeks. I have a salon running at home. I've got an amazing manager and I've got an amazing team of girls that, like, they don't need me for 2 weeks. They're good. I've trained them. We're all on the same page. I can walk away from them and not feel stressed out that, like, I don't know what they're doing. As for like home life of balance, that's hard, especially most hairstylists are gonna know that, you say you're gonna be off at 5, you finish your last foil at 7, and then you your husband's like, "Where are you?" And you're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, this client was, she showed up late, and then we had to talk about her boyfriend broke up with her, and it just turned into a whole thing, and now we're having a glass of wine," and, whatever. So, I think you can't expect that, and I think that you kinda need to let go of that a little bit. That's my honestly truthful answer to balance is I think people in this day and age are so consumed with work-life balance that it can be a hindrance because you're so focused on how to do both. And you really, for me personally, if you just say yes and open the doors, sometimes I say yes to too many things. And that's okay because it's okay to fail at something. It's not the end of the world. I can get back up and do it again because I'm gonna try it 3 times, you know?
Hmm.
So, yeah, that would be my 2 cents on balance is if you are starting in this industry and you're worried about work-life balance, stop stressing yourself out about it. Just consume yourself with work. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think it's a bad thing to be obsessively into what you're doing. Because that's how people who have made it where you wanna get, got there. And I think that's also a lack of communication that we don't see from people who have gotten places, is it does look all shiny and sparkly on the outside on social media, and it's like, "Wow, how does she do all that?" It's like, girl, I cry in my car, like, at least 3 times a week. You know what I mean? Like, I sometimes wake up last night, I woke up at 3:30 in the morning sweating because I thought I forgot an order. I mean, there are moments that you're just gonna be like, "What am I doing with my life, and how did I get here?" But it's okay because the next week is gonna come, and you're gonna have a few cancellations, and you're gonna have a day off, and that's how you find your balance, is by taking the moments that you're gifted and turning off. So I do, every once in a while, like, I have a bed rot day where I'm just like, phone's on airplane mode, the salon's on fire, hopefully the girls will call 911. You know what I mean? Like, you have to learn to also disconnect,
Yeah.
if you want to have some balance, I think. That's at least for me because I am a go hard kind of person and I'll put everything into something. And then I have to take a moment to be like, I need to be alone, right? I need some time by myself. But yeah, I don't think that, especially younger stylists, I see this a lot in our industry right now with younger stylists I see coming in is we're not in like a corporate job. You're not working at Apple or Dell or some, huge whatever. So the work life balance that those people that you hear your clients talking about a lot doesn't pertain to you because you're not tied down to a desk from 9 to 5, not able to look at your phone, not able to check on your kids, not able to do whatever. In our profession, we are so lucky that you can step away and eat lunch. You can go make a phone call. You can have your phone on you because you're taking content all day.
Hmm.
You can text your husband while you're with a client. Like, no one's going to be weird about that, right? So I think we also just have to be kind of a little bit more grateful for the positions we find ourselves in and the path that we took being in the beauty industry, because there is so much freedom in that. And I think we get stuck a little bit on that work life balance.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me because if you can be in this industry and literally create whatever schedule that you want, once you create a business, right? I mean, you can do it without creating a business. It's just work the schedule that you want, but you just need to find those clients, right? But
Yeah.
it's fascinating everything that you said because it's so, so, so true. We don't look at the other side of it. We don't look at the gift. We don't look at the things that we get to do that no one else does. We constantly look at what we don't get to do or
Yes.
what we have to do that no one else does. And we don't balance it with the other side. So
Yeah.
wow. Carly, this has been a wonderful conversation. I think there's probably there's many more podcasts that you should and could do. I'll probably come knocking again to dig into your mind even more, maybe hear a follow-up after some of your travels this year because I know people would be interested and inspired by hearing some of that and maybe feel brave enough to pull the trigger and spend the money and invest in themselves and give themselves an opportunity like what you've experienced. I think it's fantastic. And all of the mindset and ease that you have around certain pieces of business and the overall summation that I got from our conversation was like nothing's really that big of a deal.
No, we can, especially females, we can get through anything. Like we're tough cookies, And I think that, yeah, any problem just requires a solution. And there's 10,000 different ways to get there. So I hope that this does feel inspiring if someone who's just going into the industry is wanting to feel excited. There's a lot out there for you and there's so much to experience. And if you're in the industry and you're feeling burnt out and you're feeling stuck, take a chance on yourself. It You won't be upset. You will not be upset because it's going to open your mind, it's going to open your work, and you can find that fire that you had when you first went into beauty school.
Well, if anyone wanted to connect with you, or maybe they want to be involved in one of the teams that you're building for the many fashion weeks that you'll be
Yeah.
leading this year, how would they do that?
So, I live on Instagram. That's my method of madness, I will say. I'm not a TikTok gal. So, my personal page is Carly Elizabeth. It's just one word, at Carly Elizabeth. And then if anybody's interested in working bridal weeks or figuring out how to get there, I am interviewing. I've got a few spots left, for none for Paris, but we do have a few for bridal. So they can find me on Instagram as well. I also have CE International Beauty Teams. That is another handle. That is where I do all of the fashion week stuff. I try to keep them very separate. But you can reach out to me there if you are interested in going or just learning more about it, or if you even just want to have a conversation about other aspects of how to get out there. Because I will, like I said, I'm very honest. I will tell everybody what it is and how to make it. So I would love to
Carly Elizabeth, thank you so much for
thank you,
joining the
Ashley.
real beauty industry. And I can't wait until the next conversation.
Yeah, this was so fun. Thank you for popping my podcast cherry, and I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
This was
Thank
so
you.
fun. So I hope we can connect again and send Lisa my love, and I will as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, Ashley. Thank you.